Well, greetings, YouTube. LMS Tactical here, aka Mike. I hope everybody's doing good. Now, what you're going to hear, the information I'm going to give to you is 100% true and accurate. And if it doesn't concern you, you're on the wrong team and on the wrong side of history, in my humble opinion. So here we go. Not sure what I'm going to title it, but I'm sure you can tell by now this has to do with the state of affairs with American law enforcement right now. And this is encompassing everything going back to Rodney King, and then, Freddie Gray, and, all of the people in between, all of the incidents in between that have just really ramped up the anti-cop sentiment in America today. I've said so many times, that this is something some people took issue with, but it's a phrase that I coined, so I'm proud of it. You can buy bumper stickers on my website. Just kidding. But it basically is a society that turns against its protectors is fucking doomed. I can't remember exactly what I said now. So that's how profound it was. But they get what they deserve. A society that turns against its protectors. So does that mean I endorse dirty cops and crooked judges and crooked anything, crooked doctors, crooked librarians? No. Law enforcement, for those that don't know, I'm retired law enforcement, retired LAPD, and a former federal agent with an inspector general in Washington, D.C., blah, 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 blah. But, I've been in law enforcement my whole adult life. And I can tell you that I've seen great and I've seen, some bad. I've never seen cops go out and murder somebody, although I'm not ignorant. I understand that happens, and it's just like any group of human beings, you're going to get shitty ones. And, for reasons that we can cover in another video, psychological reasons, or not even sociological reasons, I guess. When one cop does something bad, they all get painted, no matter where they're at. All over the country, they're all responsible for that. Unlike if a doctor was found to be a serial killer on his off-duty days, all doctors aren't suddenly suspected of being serial killers. So that's sort of what we've always been that way, even before the days of Rodney King. Because, let's face it, man, humanity, or a lot of people in society, even though they know intellectually that you need law and order in order to have a peaceful society, that, when you see somebody that's been given some sort of power, there's a little bit of hostility, it's a little. So when they fuck up, it's always, oh, you guys aren't you're not so good, are you? Look at that, man. We got a dirty cop. Look, this cop was beating his wife, and that one was a racist. So I'm not Dr. Phil, but I can understand that to a degree. Okay, so that aside, where are we at today? And I will tell you that the information I'm giving, because I'm old school LAPD, things have changed, and a lot of it's been for the best. God, I wish we had body cameras in my day, and I'm a big proponent of body cameras. I don't believe they tell the whole story, and people that think that a video tells you everything just haven't been on the ground, have been in that situation. You got to remember, when you're watching a video, that's a big part of what happened after the video started recording. But to get a full picture, you got to watch from the minute the call came out or the observation took place, and all of the interactions. And then there's angles that you have to factor in that you can't see. And then you have to factor in the individuals that are involved, their mindset, and their fear for their own safety, the safety of others, whether it's rational or not. There's a lot of components, but yeah, I believe personally that body cameras are pretty awesome. But I do keep in contact with a number of people that are in law enforcement agencies all over the country, and in some cases all over the world. But we'll focus on America right now. And in many of those cases, these are younger people that are in police academies in mostly major cities. And I'm not going to name them, because whatever. But, you either trust me or you don't. But I'm sure there are cops that are going to comment on this that will back me up in terms of the information I'm getting as being correct. Now, if you're an old school guy like me, or you're a citizen that wants proactive law enforcement, you better brace yourself and sit down, because the shit that I'm getting ready to drop on you almost sent me to the hospital with, freaking heart failure. I knew shit was bad. I had no idea it was this bad. So where do I start, man? Things that are being taught in certain academies, and please jump in here if you're able to do so, and let me know your experiences if it won't get you in trouble. I know that's another video I can make. You can't talk about reality right now because all of our media, YouTube included, the news, movies, commercials, everything is all predicated and based on emotions and feelings. And, facts and reality come in at a distant, 50th place in terms of importance. So, not everybody's free to get on here and talk. And that's where I come in. I try to be the voice for people that can't speak when I'm talking about certain things. So let's just take it from whatever comes into my head. Let's see, in one academy, I was talking to this female officer, or cadet, trainee, whatever. And, am I allowed to say female anymore? I just got kicked off freaking Facebook for 30 days because I made a joke about my black dog. I said I needed to paint him white because he was going to upset spoiled rich white kids. Who's the victim in that one? But, it's the thought police, and that's what happens. No free thought, man, and sure as hell no free speech. So I was talking to this girl, and she was telling me, and she's in the academy, that a couple of things let's see, here's one that blew my mind. When this particular agency, what they're teaching now, when they're clearing a building, and for you non-law enforcement people, or non-military, it's kind of the same nowadays, because now the military operates a lot like law enforcement in terms of how at least they did in Iraq, and searching buildings and shit. But when you clear a building, let's say I roll up to this residence here and the silent alarm went off, or the neighbor said, hey man, the door's open and they're on vacation. So that's a good one. Okay. So you see the door's kicked in, the lock's been jimmied, whatever. And I hope most agencies, what all cops did in my day, if it's nighttime or if it's dark in there, you get your flashlight out in one hand and you got your weapon out in the other, and you tactically clear the house. Now, we all know, and this is important for what I'm getting ready to drop on you, the bad guy, if he's in there, or she, or if they are in there, unbelievable world we're living in. I don't even know how to talk anymore. But, they already know the police are there. Let's just be honest, so you position cops out in the back to make sure that these guys don't go jumping out the back window and take off, and then you clear the house. Let's not pretend that they don't know you're coming down the hallway. Of course they do. So they already have a huge advantage on you, and this is going to be important here in a second. If they've made the decision that, hey man, I ain't going back to prison, or I ain't going to prison, or whatever, or I want to commit suicide, I'm going to take these cops out or take them on or whatever. They are the ones that know that, so you're way behind the curve for a couple of reasons. Number one, they know where they are, you don't. Number two, they know that they're armed, and you don't. And number C, they know, I did that on purpose, they know that they're going to engage you, try to take you out. So you are already behind the curve, and maybe even milliseconds or nanoseconds, but in a life and death struggle, those are like, 5-hour blocks. Because everything can change in a nanosecond in a life or death confrontation. So you got your weapon at the low ready or whatever you're doing, and you're searching and you're slicing the pie and you're trying to be as tactical and safe as possible. You still have to react to whatever they do. You can call out and say, hey man, the place is surrounded, you need to come out, or we're going to send the dog, whatever. But if they are the ones calling the shots, so to speak. Actually, literally too. They're calling the shots. Okay. So you're at a disadvantage. Now dig this. When this hit me, I had to sit down. This agency and one other that I'm aware of, and it may be all of them for all I know right now, they are forbidding their officers by policy when they're searching a residence, whether it's commercial or a building, a structure, whether it's commercial or a residence. Weapon in the holster has to stay in the holster. Only thing in your hand is a flashlight. Now, if you draw your weapon, there's paperwork to be filled out. Kids, cover your ears. Are you fucking kidding me, man? Do you even as a civilian, even as a cop hater, let's just say, I know there's some watching, do you realize what's going to happen as a result? This is going to get cops killed. It's going to get them killed. And when enough of them have been killed over this, and enough cities have been sued and lost big time over this suicidal policy, trying to appease the public so that we don't look like we're, actually going to hurt somebody. When enough of that happens, they'll revert back to reality, hopefully. But by then, people are going to lose their lives. If you don't know it doesn't have to be a gun, I mean, there's people that can kill you with their bare hands, but let's just say you're searching the house. If you're not aware of the 21-foot rule, which was in my day, I don't know, maybe they've changed it to 20 and a half feet. But the FBI did all kinds of studies that were put out in law enforcement training all over the country. And I think it was 21 feet that it would take. And they've tested this over and over, and they show you the films. If I'm standing there with a gun in my holster and I'm up in the field interview position, and you're 20, let's say you're 20 feet away from me, or 21 feet, and you have an edged weapon, a knife, something like that, it's been proven over and over and over again, you can get to me and inflict fatal damage to me before I'll ever get that weapon out and on target. Civilians would be shocked if they ever had to go through any kind of training. I think everybody should have to go through it, and they wouldn't be so quick to judge cops. Not that cops are perfect, but come on, man. I mean, at this point, I made a meme the other day, and it said, a white police officer arresting a black criminal is not in and of itself racism. That's not a racist act. Unless we're prepared to just say hands off completely of anybody of color. If we're willing to do that as a society, then that needs to be the law. But you can't just assume that when you're driving down the street and you see an African-American person being detained by the police or fighting with the police or, God forbid, being shot by the police. You can't just assume that these cops are just racist and that had the guy been other than a minority, they wouldn't have even stopped. Because you don't know the circumstances. Whole other video. But let me just finish up on this building clearance thing. And by the way, it doesn't just go with the clearing of the building. These two agencies that I'm aware of, they're training their officers. You cannot draw your weapon without a use of force report. Now, if you were to go look at my Beretta 9mm that I carried as a cop, and even my stainless steel Smith & Wesson 38 before that, when I first joined, on the 9mm, these are black weapons, right? On the sides of it, they're you can see the silver metal, not silver, but the silver colored metal, because my weapon was getting pulled out every 15 seconds. I mean, if somebody came up and asked me what time it was, I drew a weapon. Just kidding. It's a little humor. Don't freak out. But I mean, really? I mean, you're going to tell somebody to go out there and go into the alleys and the darkest, most crime-ridden areas, and when I say dark, I mean there's areas that literally have no lighting because they'll all be shot out, and you're in the most crime-ridden areas and you're sneaking down alleys, and you're going to restrict them from using the tools that you give them to save themselves and save other people. Unbelievable. Okay, what was the other insane thing? God, don't let this slip my mind, man. This was another one. Oh, unbelievable. Another person who happens to be a female as well. I don't know why I hear from a lot of guys too, but in this case, this is what comes to my mind. And she was telling me that, and she's kind of a new person in an academy, just started. And they were talking about, they were getting their baton training. And these instructors were teaching them to run away from a suspect rather than engage the suspect. Run across the street, get behind a car, run down the street. Just keep running until backup arrives. Holy fuck. I mean, I'm not saying that there's never a time to get distance between. I mean, distance is your friend in most cases. But teaching cops to flee, I could go for 6 hours and tell you all the ramifications of that. I'll leave it for you guys to throw in the comments, especially some of you law enforcement people. What could go wrong with that? You know, and maybe some of the real leftist cop haters will say, hey, look, it's better than killing somebody. And nobody agrees more. You know, the object is not to kill people, man. You know, if cops were just psychotic killers and just wanting to drop the hammer whenever they could, we'd be tripping over bodies. Because, you know, at least back in my day, you'd be tripping over bodies. The standard in court, when you took somebody's life, unfortunately, was, you know, what was reasonable? Would a reasonable person under the same circumstances, in the same position, have felt enough fear for their safety, or of death or great bodily harm, that they would have resorted to deadly force? You know, that's a subjective marker, you know? So if cops really wanted to kill a lot of people, you know, you wouldn't believe it. You know, well, they do kill a lot of people, Mike. Not when you look at the population and, more importantly, the number of contacts that take place 24 hours, 365 days. It's, you know, as I'm making this video, all around the country, people are stopping people, and the races aren't matching. You know, it's a black cop with an Asian guy, or a white cop and a black guy. They're not going to get killed because, as I've always said, and as anybody knows, the message and the bottom line is, you don't hold trial at the scene of the detention. If a cop orders you, gives you a lawful order, and a lawful order is if you're legally detained and he tells you to step out of the car, step out of the car. If it's an unlawful order, step out of the fucking car. Do what you're told to avoid an issue. Remember, they're filming, and you can ask them, hey, you got your body camera on? Make sure they got it on. You can film nowadays. You know, I didn't have this shit when I was a cop, you know, cell phones and shit. But, you know, get it on film, get an attorney, and sue the cop if he broke the rules, and get some money out of it. But the point is, you're staying alive. You know, the minute you start trying to have a trial, hey, fuck you, man, this ain't legal. This is an illegal stop. I know my right. The minute you pull that shit, you know, this is another thing that drives me nuts with law enforcement, man. A cop pulls, this is hypothetical, but this shit happens every day. Cop pulls a guy over. Let's say a white cop pulls a black driver over for running a red light. Cop sees him run a red light. Now, by the time the whole stop's over, the cop has shot the guy 6 times and he's dead. And for the next 3 or 6 months or a year, you're going to hear how a white cop gunned down an unarmed black motorist for running a red light. You have to be smarter than the manipulative headlines and this bullshit. He didn't get killed. And this is a hypothetical, but these are based on things that I know have happened. In this case, he wasn't killed for running the light. Let's look at what really happened in my scenario. So the cop stops him for running the red light. The guy's pissed off. Hey, fuck you, man. I hate cops or whatever. Quit. You're fucking with me because you don't like my color, blah, blah, blah. You know, I'm going to sue you. You know, hey, could you get out of the car? Because the guy's getting nervous, whatever. Or let's just say he doesn't get out of the car. And finally the guy says, you know what, man? I'm going to blow your fucking brains out. And he reaches into his jacket here, his shirt. And the cop shoots him 4 or 5 or 6 times. Was he killed for running a red light? No. Oh, and then it turns out there's no weapon in there. So we have an unarmed black person killed who was stopped for running a red light. He wasn't killed for running the red light. He wasn't killed because he was black. He was killed because he said, I'm going to blow your fucking brains out. And he made a furtive movement that is consistent with somebody arming themselves. As a police officer, we're not required yet. I'm sure the leftists will have us this way eventually, but we're not required to be bleeding, have a sucking chest wound from 3 bullets before we're able to respond. Just like you wouldn't be. If you get a knock on the door and I'm standing there and I'm like, hey man, I'm going to blow your fucking brains out, and I reach in my shirt and you have a weapon in your hand, what are you going to do? Because the normal person is going to believe that I'm going to kill you. I just said I was going to do it. I don't have to wait till I'm hurt. So, you know, and then maybe it turns out in the investigation that the guy was on drugs, or he had mental disability, or he was suicidal, and this was a suicide by cop. These are all things I've seen happen, and these happen all the time. So you got to get past that one headline. You know, cops kill an unarmed guy for walking down the street, or cops murder a guy because he shoplifted a pack of gum. No. When you get stopped by the police, man, if you're not cooperating, you begin another set of things into motion. And, you know, the old thing, man, you know, every action has a reaction. And so if you're going to push back and bring other things into it, like the officer's safety and your expletives and your cussing and your fighting, man, cop doesn't even remember what he stopped you for. Now he's just trying to stay alive. He's got a right to, or she, or they, whatever. All right. So, I'll leave you with this because this is getting a little long, but, let's go to a different city that I'm aware of. Forget the police academy. I have talked to a couple cops in one agency. Here's what their assignment is at night, or not at night, on their watch, whether it's day or night. Now remember, in my day, we drove around, and I always liked working in the wee hours, dark. That's where all the bad guys were. Excuse me. We drove around with the windows down, even if it was raining. We want to hear people screaming or a window break or a gunshot or a door close. We were hunting bad guys. We were hunting criminals. That's what we did. That's called proactive police work. This agency, when you leave roll call, you're assigned a certain area and you go sit in your police car and you wait for a radio call. They do not want people rolling around proactively looking for crime. How does that make you feel as a citizen, guys? Do you feel safe? I do, because I'm armed to the fucking teeth right now, but I wouldn't feel safe, man. If especially if I had little kids growing up, and it's not fair to you guys. You guys have to get off, and then I'll really wrap it up with this, because take a look, do a Google, find out what the recruitment levels are on large. Now I keep more in track with West Coast agencies because that's where I'm from. But like LAPD, I mean, the recruiting is off the charts. They're not able to get people to volunteer to be, or to go through the academies. Because quite frankly, who in their right mind would want to put on a badge right now if you looked any shade of me? Who would want to do that? If you have any brains at all, you're going to the fire department or doing something else. But who's the same academy where they sit on the street and wait for calls? The same agency, the instructors at that academy tell their recruits literally that you look around you. Some of you sitting here are going to end up in prison. You're going to end up in prison. That's just a given. And 5 out of the 6 of you are going to be fired if they're talking to a small group. So when we went in, man, we were proud to be cops, man. Oh, it's because you were bullied as a kid and you have a power trip. Yeah, okay, whatever. But we thought we were doing so. I never knew how much I was making as a cop. I didn't do it for the money. Cops don't do this shit for the money. You think they're getting rich? Yeah, man, because they steal everybody's money. Okay, yeah, you're a cop hater. But those normal, rational thinking people, free thinking people, you get what I'm saying. People wanted to be police officers because that's what they wanted to do. They wanted to be the thin blue line between good and evil. And let me tell you something, man. There is no society ever in the history of humanity that's ever survived without law and order. And you can either have a dictator. If you think cops are bad now, wait until you see what you get when the standards are dropped so low, which they're going to have to be. They're going to have to start taking people with major arrest records. Okay, I see here you were in a gang. You've been arrested 46 times. Yeah, you're the perfect candidate. They're going to have to do that. Bill, are all ex-gang members bad? No. But the majority are not good candidates for law enforcement because you give people power, you better be able to trust them. Even cops, as you know. Each agency has its share of guys that go down the wrong path. Go to YouTube and check out cops being arrested, And it's a reflection of society. The more fucked up society is, the more fucked up police are because we're part of society. You see how it works? So, if you think you got it bad now, man, just wait until you got shit going on like North Korea where cops are, or like Mexico used to be, I don't know if it is now, where every time you get stopped, you got to slip them a $50 bill. Or they'll impound your car. They'll be raping people, killing people. This is what happens when you drop look, LAPD had a federal consent decree where they had to lower the standards after Rodney King, and we ended up with, what was that guy's name that was they were stealing dope from the evidence locker and selling it, and they were committing bank robberies and all kinds of shit was going down. That's what was expected to happen, and that's what happened. That's what happens when you got an outside influence trying to dictate how law enforcement is run. You got these civilian review boards now. Is it a good idea? Yeah, I think it is, but they're not They're not running it properly. You know, everybody that's on a civilian shooting review board or a use of force board should be required to go through what is that called? That high pressure, you know, the airsoft or come on, shoot, don't shoot training. Even if it's just in front of a situation simulator where you're going up against a video where you have to make life and death decisions, and you end up shooting people that are holding I'm a deaf mute cards, you know, reaching in the wallet and coming out, and you shoot them 10 times, and that's what they're holding. You know, you need to. How in the hell could I go sit on the review board for brain surgeons that fuck up with my lack of education and my lack of medical experience? But that's what we're doing when we ask civilians to review the proper use of force on police departments. So I know I've been all over the map. It's a complex subject. I'm going to stop it here so it doesn't drag on and on and on. Let me know your thoughts. If I got any cops out there or ex-cops, I like your comments because you can correct me where I was wrong and throw in your 2 cents. Civilians, you know, try to avoid the, hey, fuck you, all cops are bad. I mean, you know, that's great. I don't like blocking people, but I do now because I've been kicked off so much shit now. I don't like hearing it. So, you know, you don't have to love cops, but explain why you don't love them or why you hate them, you know, without just saying, hey, they're all fucked up or all cops are racist. Because, you know, even you, the serial cop hater, you know that all cops aren't racist. So anyways, I hope that helps somebody. I don't know how it helped you. It probably scared the shit out of you. It would scare me. I hope it's woken somebody up. Give you something to think about. Anyways, you guys stay safe. LMS.